20,000 people gone. No war, no plague, no conqueror. Just silence. And a pyramid still standing in Illinois, bigger than anything the Egyptians ever built. A pyramid that most Americans drive past without ever knowing exists. I need you to understand something before we go any further. What you are about to learn was not lost by accident. It was erased, deliberately, systematically, over decades. And the fact that you don't know this story, that fact alone, is part of the story. By the end of this video, you will understand 3 things that your history textbooks refuse to teach you. 1. How a Native American city became more powerful than any civilization on this continent 1,000 years ago. 2. What was buried inside those mounds and why it made archaeologists stop breathing. 3. Why 20,000 people vanished without leaving a single written word of explanation. And I'll add a 4th thing. Free of charge, you will understand exactly why this city was erased from history and who benefited from that erasure. But first, one number, 1066. Remember that number. We're going to come back to it. And when we do, everything you thought you knew about the history of this continent flips upside down. The name of this city was Cahokia, and this is its story. Here's what the Mississippi Valley looked like in 900 AD. Not empty, not primitive, alive, thousands of villages, dozens of cultures, a continent in motion. The Mississippi wasn't just a river, it was a highway, the longest, most connected highway on Earth. And every highway and every civilization that has ever existed needs a capital. Around 1050 AD, something happened that archaeologists literally call the Big Bang of Cahokia. In less than 1 human generation, 25 years, maybe less, a modest village in the banks of the Mississippi exploded into a city of 20,000 people. Nobody knows exactly why. Remember that number I gave you? 1066. That's the year William the Conqueror invaded England. The year Europe began its slow, bloody rise to global power. That same year, on the other side of the Atlantic, in what is now the state of Illinois, Cahokia already had a larger population than London. Let that land. While European kings were fighting over muddy fields and wooden castles, a Native American city on the Mississippi River was running a continent-wide trade empire, tracking the movements of the sun with surgical precision, building structures so massive they still stand today. So why don't you know this? Something drew those 20,000 people to Cahokia, a leader of impossible charisma, a vision so compelling that people walked hundreds of miles to be part of it, a promise of prosperity, of meaning, of belonging. And the moment they arrived, they started building 55 million cubic feet of earth, moved entirely by hand. No metal tools, no wheels, no draft animals, just human bodies and absolute unshakable belief. They built 120 mounds across 6 square miles, a wooden perimeter wall 2 miles long, watchtowers every 70 feet. And at the center of everything, Monk's Mound, 100 feet tall, 14 acres at its base, the largest man-made earthen structure in the entire Western Hemisphere, bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza by volume. At the very top of that mound, a palace, and inside that palace, a god, because that's what Cahokia's ruler was, not a chief, not a king, a god, a living, breathing deity who controlled the sun, the rain, the harvest, and the line between life and death, and gods, real ones, the kind people actually believe in, demand something in return. In 1967, a team of archaeologists began digging into a low, unremarkable ridge at the south end of the site. They called it Mound 72. They expected pottery, maybe some scattered bones. What they found made them stop breathing. Inside Mound 72, buried at the center, was a man. Not just any man. A ruler, laid on a bed of 20,000 handcrafted shell beads, arranged in the precise shape of a falcon, wings spread wide, surrounded by hundreds of obsidian arrowheads, sheets of hammered copper, mica carried by hand from 500 miles away. The burial alone took weeks to excavate. Every bead had to be recorded, every artifact photographed. The team worked in silence. They understood they were touching something that had not been touched in 1,000 years. But here's where it gets dark. Around him, in carefully arranged pits dug with geometric precision, were 53 young women, all between 15 and 25 years old, all killed at exactly the same moment, all placed deliberately, like offerings arranged on an altar. And that was just one pit. In other sections of Mound 72, men buried without their hands, without their heads, mass graves, organized, ritualized, on a scale that took the archaeological team months to fully process. Cahokia wasn't just a city of farmers and traders. It was a city built on absolute power, and absolute power in every civilization that has ever existed on every continent in every century always extracts the same price from the people at the bottom. Here's what's remarkable, though. The people stayed. For 300 years, they stayed, which means Cahokia offered something powerful enough, meaningful enough to outweigh everything it demanded. What was that thing? This is where the story flips completely. At the exact same time those mass burials were happening, at the exact same moment archaeologists were uncovering ritualized death, Cahokia's intellectuals were building an observatory. Archaeologists call it Woodhenge, a massive circle of red cedar posts, each one precisely positioned, not approximately, not roughly, precisely, to mark a specific moment in the solar calendar: spring equinox, summer solstice, autumn equinox, winter solstice. Stand at the center of Woodhenge on the morning of the spring equinox, and you will watch the sun rise directly over the peak of Monk's Mound, perfectly aligned, every single year, without a single degree of error. No telescopes, no calculators, no written records, just observation, memory, and generations of accumulated knowledge passed from elder to child, from astronomer to apprentice for centuries. The same people who performed ritual sacrifice at dawn were doing astronomy precise enough to still work perfectly today. That is not a contradiction. That is a human civilization in full. And here is the proof that Cahokia wasn't just powerful. It was the center of an entire world. Inside the mounds, archaeologists found copper from Lake Superior, 700 miles to the north, mica from the Appalachian Mountains, 800 miles to the east, shells from the Gulf of Mexico, 700 miles to the south, obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, 1,400 miles to the west. Every direction, every distance, all roads, all rivers, all trade paths, all pilgrim routes led to Cahokia, This was the economic and spiritual capital of an entire continent. The New York City of 1100 AD, built by people whose names we will never know, whose language we cannot speak, whose songs we will never hear, whose story was almost erased entirely. Almost. Now, here's the question nobody warned you about, because up to this point, you might be thinking, okay, powerful city, impressive architecture, brutal sacrifices, standard ancient civilization stuff, but here's what makes Cahokia genuinely unlike anything else in history. By 1350 AD, 300 years after its peak, Cahokia was completely empty, not conquered. No invading army, no catastrophic fire, no mass plague visible in the archaeological record. The mounds still stood. The cedar posts of wood hinge were still in the ground. The city, the greatest city in the history of North America, was simply abandoned. And nobody, not a single archaeologist, not a single historian, can tell you with certainty why. Two theories dominate the field, and they could not be more different. Theory one, they destroyed themselves. The population grew beyond what the land could sustain. They stripped the surrounding forests for construction and fuel. They silted the rivers with runoff. They collapsed the soil that fed them. An ecological suicide driven not by failure, but by success. The city grew so powerful, so fast, that it consumed the very environment that made it possible. Sound familiar? Theory two is darker and stranger. They chose to leave. The sacrifices, the hierarchy, the weight of living under a god who demanded blood. At some point, enough people looked up at the top of that mound and decided quietly, collectively, no more. They didn't revolt. There is no evidence of revolution or violence in the final years. They simply dissolved the city the way you end a relationship that has cost you everything. Not with a war, but with a decision. 1,000 small decisions, one family leaving, then another, until the streets were quiet and the fires went out. We don't know which theory is right. We may never know. The Mississippians left no written record, no explanation, just silence and mounds, and a question that has no answer. Remember that Walmart, the one I mentioned at the very beginning, the parking lot in Illinois? That's not a metaphor. That's not a literary device. That is literally what happened. In the 1960s, before federal protections existed for archaeological sites, developers bulldozed dozens of Cahokia's outer mounds for roads, for parking lots, for a drive-in movie theater. Centuries of history, irreplaceable archaeological evidence, structures that took thousands of people decades to build by hand. Gone in an afternoon, cleared by machines operated by men who either didn't know or didn't care what they were destroying. The core site survived, barely. In 1982, UNESCO added Cahokia Mounds to its World Heritage List, the same list as the Pyramids of Giza, the same list as Machu Picchu, the same list as the Acropolis of Athens. It sits in Collinsville, Illinois. Admission is free. It is open to the public every day, and most days it gets fewer visitors than the shopping mall 2 miles down the road. I want you to sit with that for a moment. A UNESCO World Heritage Site, the largest pre-columbian city north of Mexico. A pyramid bigger than the ones that draw millions of tourists to Egypt every year. Visited by fewer people than a shopping mall. That is not an accident. That is the result of a very specific, very deliberate choice about which histories get taught, which civilizations get remembered, which people get monuments and museum wings and blockbuster documentaries, and which people get a Walmart built on top of their graves. Here's what I want to leave you with. 1,000 years ago, 20,000 people built something so extraordinary that it took highways and parking lots and a century of deliberate silence to make most Americans forget it ever existed. They had no writing, no metal tools, no wheel. They had vision. They had belief. They had each other. And they raised a pyramid in the heart of this continent that is still standing right now, waiting for you, waiting for anyone willing to look. The mounds don't need your textbooks to validate them. They have been here the whole time. Cahokia didn't disappear. We just stopped looking. And if this story taught you anything, it's this. History is not a list of facts. It is a series of choices. Choices about who gets remembered, who gets erased, who gets a pyramid, and who gets a parking lot. The civilizations that were buried, deliberately, systematically by people who feared what their existence meant, those are the civilizations I'm going to keep showing you. Because in 2 weeks, same channel, same format, we're leaving Illinois. We're crossing the Atlantic. We're entering the Sahara Desert in 1324 AD. And we are going to follow a man who traveled with 60,000 people, 12,000 servants, and so much gold that he accidentally destroyed the economies of 3 entire continents simultaneously. His name was Mansa Musa. He was so wealthy that every billionaire alive today, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, every name on the Forbes list, combined, pooled, stacked on top of each other, could not come close to touching him. And just like Cahokia, you were never properly taught about him. Subscribe, turn on notifications. That video is coming, and you do not want to miss it.